myself. I'm an international relations specialist, and I will explain to you today the relationship between the European Union and Ukraine and how it was built, why, and also what is going on right now with the whole application to the European Union thing in Ukraine, etc. What I will talk about today is the more or less historic perspective of the relationship between the European Union and Ukraine. So how it started at the beginning, so from the moment Ukraine declared the independence from the Soviet Union. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about the Revolution of Dignity, so the Euromaidan in 2014 in Ukraine, and also about what is going on right now with the European application, with the Ukraine's European application, and how this process is unfolding now. So let me just so how the relationship between the European Union and Ukraine started, basically at the beginning of the 90s, Ukraine declared its independence from the Soviet Union, and just 2 years later, the Ukrainian government issued a declaration about the desire of Ukraine to have this European integration and to move towards the European direction. A lot of documents were signed between the Union and Ukraine, so the Partnership and Cooperation Agreement, a strategy for Ukraine's integration, a program also. So a lot of things happened in the 90s, but it was not really active, and it was more or less bureaucratic process. Then in 2007, Ukraine started negotiations on the new agreement because the past agreement in 1994 came to an end, and we wanted to have a closer and broader economic cooperation with the European Union, but also to have a better political dialogue and to speak more about how we will integrate the European Union in the future, because this is what was the point at the beginning. In 2009, Ukraine begins to participate in the EU Eastern Partnership. If you know this program, this is a broad program for the neighborhood countries of the European Union. So Georgia, Azerbaijan, I guess Belarus also was a part of this partnership at the moment. And Ukraine also has access to all this Eastern Partnership, and it allows a country to have access to European funds, to programs. So it's really a big step towards European integration, and it allows people of a partner country, of a neighborhood country, to have more possibilities, more opportunities with the European Union. Then in 2012, Ukraine initiated an association agreement with the European Union. So the process started and the negotiations started about how this agreement will work and what it will be about, on the economic side, the political side, etc., etc. But the next year, in 2013, the government of the President Yanukovych stopped these preparations, so they were suspended by the government. And this is basically why Ukrainians started the revolution in 2014. So the Euromaidan, or...
May I interrupt? Why was it suspended by the president?
So the government explained the suspension because they said that we will better move towards Russia and a union, like a trade union with Russia and Belarus, and want to make to head towards Russia more than the European Union, because Yanukovych and his government was more pro-Russian than pro-European, and this was their choice, and they didn't get the people's support, so the support of Ukrainians. So Ukrainians took to the streets, and first it was the students who started the protest, and then the whole country began the revolution. And so I want to make 2 points here that I want to highlight. The first one is that the whole reason of the revolution was the desire of people to head towards the European Union and to have this European integration. So there wasn't, like, people didn't agree with the government, with the decision of the government to head towards Russia, and they said, no, we don't want this. We want to decide for ourselves. Why did you decide without any agreement with us, with the people of Ukraine? And so they were protesting because they wanted all the European freedoms that we know about, that the European Union is based on, the democracy, the freedom of speech. And this is what we wanted to see in Ukraine as well. And that's why we started the revolution, we changed the government, the president fled, and the whole point was to head towards the European Union. And this is what we got in the end. Ukraine took really a wide turn to the European Union more than towards Russia. And the second point also is why I chose these two photos is because you can see the European flags during the revolution. So people took these flags to the streets, and they were putting them alongside Ukrainian flags because this is what they were fighting for. They were fighting for this flag, for this European values, for the European Union. And this was in a country who wasn't even a member of the European Union and who didn't even start the process of the application. So it was just desire of people and the representation of what they wanted to have in the end and what they wanted to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes,
so
if I may say something, this is also the time when Russians were launching the Eurasian agreement. And I think for them, it was very difficult to imagine this trade agreement without Ukraine. Because today, if we look at the countries which belong to this agreement, I mean, they are small countries, even Kazakhstan don't weigh very much. And I think Russia represents 92% of the power inside. So I think it was very important for Russia that Ukraine would be in that agreement.
Yes, and so this probably also why Russia started this aggression in 2013 as well in Crimea and in the East, because Russia wanted to have influence on Ukraine, but Ukraine was heading towards the European Union already. Mm-hmm. Also, this revolution was really a turning point in the perception of people in favor of the European Union. So you can see on the graph how in 2014 it jumped. So it has really big steps towards the European Union. So people were really more in favor of the European Union, of the Ukraine's accession to the European Union. And it's actually a poll that was made in March 1st this year. And you can see how it also jumped when the war started, even more than what it was during the revolution. So now 86% of people in Ukraine want to see Ukraine in the European Union. But also we see the negative attitude towards Russia that started right at the moment of the revolution. So it was also a turning point in Ukraine about the feeling, with the feeling about Russia, right when it annexed Crimea, people started to think more negatively about Russia. So it was really a turning point. Ukraine in 2014 turned 360 degrees and headed towards European Union. Okay,
it's interesting because on the map, if I may say, on the map it's starting from very high. There was a very good opinion, something like 85 about Russia, and then it fell with the fact in Crimea. Okay.
Yeah. So now together with the all the agreements that Ukraine was signing during 90s and early 2000s, was really not that active, and people were still watching towards Russia. And we had a really positive attitude towards Russia, and people really thought good about Russia. And then in 2014 just dropped. All the polls, you can see how the attitude really dropped. and it was fluctuating a lot, but like even now in 2022, you can see how it dropped again.
That was after the start of the war or before?
Yeah, it's in 2022. Yeah, it was 34% already. So if in 2010 we had like 80% of positive attitude towards Russia, now we have 34.
Okay.
Okay, so what is going on right now with the relationship of the European Union and Ukraine? You can see in the photos, I think it's really a historic moment in Ukraine and for Ukrainian people. Is the day when president and the government signed the application to the European Union. So it was only 4 days after the war started. They applied to the European Union saying, we want to start this process, we are ready, and please accept our application, we want to continue further. But the EU accession process is really complex and long, so Ukraine is only on the step 2, and there are a lot of other processes and steps to follow, and countries, like candidate countries, they really take a lot of years even to go through all these steps and to be granted either the membership or the candidate status. However, for Ukraine, it will probably take shorter time because it's not a usual process. As you can see in the previous image, so we are in the step where Commission has to submit an opinion on the application of Ukraine to the EU. And so to issue this opinion, Commission has to assess the answers of Ukraine to a special questionnaire. So this is why Ursula von der Leyen came to Kiev herself personally to hand this questionnaire to the President Zelensky and to say, here you have the questions and you have to answer them. So Commission can issue an opinion whether you are ready or not to be a part of the European Union. But she said that it will probably not take years for Ukraine to follow this process, but it will be a matter of weeks. And a lot of experts also say that Commission's opinion will be issued this summer in June 2022, so in a few months, in a couple of months actually. And it will probably happen during the EU Council in June. But also the negotiations that after the Commission's opinion is issued, the official negotiations start between the European Union and Ukraine, and they also take a lot of time, but they will probably start this year also. So we're heading towards half of 2022 right now, and probably in the second half of 2022, the negotiations will start already. And so also a thing about how this whole situation with Ukraine is extraordinary right now is the record time with which Ukraine submitted the answers to this questionnaire. So often countries take a lot of years, a lot of effort to answer all these questions from the European Commission because they're complex. They take a lot of information from all the areas in the country, so economic, legal, market, etc., etc. But Ukraine submitted answers to this questionnaire in only 10 days, and this is really a record time for such a procedure. So President Zelensky handed over the first part of these answers to the EU ambassador in Ukraine. It was only, I think it was yesterday or like 2 days ago. Yeah, it was yesterday. So it only took 10 days for Ukraine to submit this question, and it shows how this process will probably be really fast and will not take this usual route that it takes with the different countries.
Can I have a question to this?
Yes, sure.
In media, in Slovakia, it was presented, the process with Ukraine was presented a little bit like a, you know, it was something that we were expected to be like faster. People in Slovakia were disappointed that Ukraine has to go through entire process the same way like other candidate countries. And we understood that it could be a disappointment for Ukraine a little bit as well. Is it so that even like some faster track process was expected on the side of Ukraine? Because I know that there were some countries who really wanted to go through entire process, and they were actually making the process slower.
Yeah, so of course, people in Ukraine wanted to have this like fast track and be in the European Union like in 2 days, but everyone understands that it doesn't take 2 days. It really takes a lot of time. The thing is, Ukraine had already had this whole cooperation thing with the European Union. So in 2014, right after the revolution ended, we signed this association agreement that was suspended at the beginning. We finally signed it, and it opened the whole framework of cooperation between Ukraine and the EU. And so we already have all the acquis that the European Union asks us to have. So it doesn't bother us at all to have this whole process, because we know that we already have everything. We already have all the answers. We already have all these reforms, maybe not all of them, not 100%, but we are heading towards this process. And it doesn't bother us to go through this process, because it really, even if it takes 1 year or 2 years, this is what we were fighting for since 2014, basically. So yeah, yes. It's already 8 years. And yeah, I think a couple of years, it doesn't really matter.
Yes, if I may say, it's a very complex process, because you have to align the laws, you have to align the values, you have to check many things. Even you have to set up cooperation on the borders, on the police. So it's something that can be very long. And as far as I understand, it will be made faster in any case, because I've read also something yesterday saying that there will be something signed in a very short time. So I don't know what.
I think that this fast track that is talked about in media and by people everywhere is not like, the European Union doesn't really have this fast track procedure. But the thing is that Ukraine is really a close partner. I think one of the closest for the European Union. And so we already have all the reports, like each month, each quarter, we submit the reports about how the European money are used, how the European projects are developing, how the reforms are being implemented. So basically, we're already ready. Like, we only have to sign a few papers and to have this official opinion, official maybe vote in the parliament, in the council, and then it will be done. But well, probably it will be really fast.
Yes. And what I was reading today, there was an official declaration by the European Union that they will reconstruct Ukraine. They will spend money to reconstruct Ukraine at the end of the war. So it was something, they are ready to help the reconstruction of Ukraine.
Yeah, I guess if Ukraine is accepted as a member of the European Union after the war will end, it will for sure open a lot of possibilities for Ukraine to get funding from the European Union. But I think the European Union will not be the only funder of this reconstruction, and will accept help from a lot of countries also. But yeah, it will help a lot as well. Okay, I think Yeah, I have this last slide, but it doesn't show in a full mode. So yeah, it's all from my side, and I just wanted to end with a little quote by Dutch historian Rutger Bregman, who said that Ukraine basically chose Europe, and this is why Putin found that intolerable for him. And now it is up to us, the Europeans, to choose Ukraine. And in the darkness of this war, the only one thing is certain is that Ukraine's future lies in Europe, and also our joint future lies in Europe. So I hope that we'll stay all together and we'll see this joint future really soon.
Okay, thank you very much. No, maybe I have questions about well, how would I say? I read a study I think it was done in 2005. I couldn't find it any longer, but it was very interesting because they made a study on PhD students preparing work in Ukraine, studying in Ukraine. And what they found out at this time, already in 2005, in the references they were using, they were using almost no Russian documents, articles, or books. They were already looking at another direction. And I don't know, how do you see the difference in generation? How did you feel as a Ukrainian? Did you see things change, or how did it happen?
Yeah, we have really a huge difference in generations. It also depends maybe on geographical representation in Ukraine, like the East and the West, but basically the older generation who remembers this whole Soviet Union thing, they are sometimes reminiscent about how good it was and how it was all like cheaper and better. And so they are heading towards this idea of another union with Russia and with all these ex-Soviet republics, because they know this and they remember this and this was good for them. But my generation, for example, my friends, they don't know this union, the Soviet Union. We were born in an independent country, and we only know Ukraine independent and heading towards the European Union. So the only thing we saw is the European integration for Ukraine. So we are more pro-European, and even my mom and my dad, they are like 50-something, and they remember the Soviet Union. They are more pro-European also right now, because they saw how in Soviet Union it was really censored a lot of things, like even Ukrainian language and Ukrainian culture and literature. It was really under this censure, and they even now they speak Russian just because they don't really know Ukrainian, and they weren't taught Ukrainian while they were younger. However, me, myself, my little sister, we studied in school in Ukrainian, and we had Ukrainian teachers, Ukrainian literature, and this is really a huge difference between the generations, and the desire of another generation to be in the Soviet Union or a kind of Soviet Union, or be in the European Union. And also maybe because my grandparents and my parents, they didn't really have a lot of possibilities to travel when they were younger, and they didn't see the world. But me and my generation, we already had this possibility, and even travel without any visas since 2017. So we only have to have our passport, and we can travel in the European Union wherever we want to go. So we, since, I don't know, 15 years old, maybe 13 years old, I saw the European Union, I saw European Union countries, and I saw how great it was. And this is why I wanted my country also to be a part of this union. However, my parents and my grandparents, they didn't really see that. They only saw Soviet Union, and they weren't really allowed to travel anywhere.
And if tomorrow we change the picture, and we decide, okay, the Ukraine will be connected to Russia.
We'll start another revolution. That's for sure. Oh, you saw the poll, like 86% of people want to be a part of the European Union. So yeah, they will not be okay with that.
No, what could happen?
I think, yeah, another revolution, another Euromaidan.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask, for example, you actually are Ukrainian studying in Lille. And how did you get there, you personally?
So it was so long ago. I remember, yeah, I applied through this organization, Campus France, which was based in Ukraine. So they had a few offices in Ukraine, in Kiev and in other cities as well. And so as a student coming from a non-European country, I had to apply. I couldn't apply directly to French universities. I had to apply only through this organization. So I submitted my documents to them and I said, these are the universities that I want to apply to, and I want to study this and that. These are my documents, and so please transfer them to the universities for revision. And this is what they did. So basically, they're taking care of possible students, so Ukrainians, young Ukrainians who want to study in France. And they really help a lot with the consultations, because I was like 17 years old. I didn't really understand how French system works, how French universities work. And I had a lot of consultations with this French organization here in Ukraine, with Campus France. They explained a lot. They helped a lot with the documents, with the visa also. And so, yeah, I just Googled what it was in France. So I saw that French academic education is basically free of charge for even foreigners. You have to pay a fee of 300 or 400 euros per year, and it's really nothing compared to all other schools in England or in the United States, for example. It costs a lot. And in France, the public education is free of charge even for foreigners. And it struck me how a foreigner, I can study in France, and it would probably cost me even less than the education in Ukraine. So I applied. Yeah, I saw that I can only apply through Campus France. And yeah, so this is what
Did you start with a master, or did you do something?
No, I started with the license. Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah,
in
2
Lille?
years. So yeah.
Okay.
I think this
That's
is
because
the best example how the EU can network through students within the EU.
I have
With the
even
Ukraine, because I'm coming from Slovakia, and I actually went on my first Erasmus program when Slovakia was accessing EU in 2005. And since then, I mean, there has been like so many exchanges and Erasmus and student exchanges have been the best success of EU in my eyes.
Yeah,
and
I want to add also about Erasmus, because like the fact that I applied to the French university didn't really stuck in my head as a European experience. But then I think on the third year, we had this information coming along with the university that this is the Erasmus program, and you can apply and you can participate. And I was curious if I, as a Ukrainian citizen studying in France, can I apply also? And they said, yeah, well, you're of Ukrainian citizenship, but if you have all your permits, like to travel and to live in another country, okay, sure, like you're a French student basically, and you can also go and participate in the Erasmus program. And so this was really striking for me, how I, as Ukrainian studying in France, can go to Norway and study in Norway or in another country. This is truly European integration in action.
So
yes.
did you study in Norway?
No. I wanted to apply, but then I decided that I want to, like, it was really hard to move again, and I have to like move another country for like a few months, and then to come back was really hard. And I said, no, I will do it another time. And yeah, I had a little experience in the US while I was studying my master's, so probably counts as well.
The funny thing was that I used to study in Finland, and I needed to go back to Slovakia for personal reasons for some months. And I went through Erasmus students, like back to my home country.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was-
I had this. Yeah, I had this. I saw a few Ukrainian universities also on the list with your Erasmus program, and I was laughing and say like, I can also go home and study at home.
Actually, yes. What I see here, it's the type of, how would I say, soft power of the European Union. Like people are attracted and they're going in that direction because, yeah, things are nicer, I guess, because I think this is the reason why Ukrainians are looking in that direction. And especially if you look at students, Erasmus, then they meet other European students and they start to develop, I don't know, a type of belonging. It's almost a belonging, yeah, because you belong to this group of people. So
I mean,
Yeah, I met a lot of.
teams, in these
Yeah.
student teams, you don't feel any difference between students from Erasmus countries. So I think that's wonderful for European programs.
I met a lot of Ukrainians studying through the Erasmus program in France, and well, at first they were really shocked, and they thought like, oh my God, I'm in France, and I have my like student payments, like every month they had money, and they could travel, and they were saying, oh my God, that's so great, and they really shared this amazing experience because they were talking with a lot of different students from different countries, and they were exchanging contacts, and they were saying, I will come to your country and I will probably even spend like a year in your country. I will take a gap year, or I will apply to the university like in Spain or another country. And I was thinking, oh my God, it's amazing, this community of people, and that Ukrainians are also a part of this community.
okay, so it's very interesting. It's too bad we don't have Svetlana because she was busy. She was working, but because Svetlana is was in the same university also. Right? So, okay, just a question for my own interest. How is it living in Kiev at the moment?
Well, I'm not in Kiev at the moment, but I'm thinking about coming back. I'm in Lviv, but my father, he's in Kiev. My boyfriend, he's in Kiev as well, but right now it's better. They still have like airstrike alarms, and I don't think there are bombings anymore, but there were a few in like past months. But right now it's great, and there are really a lot of people coming back. And I'm asking my friends about like how is it going in Kiev, and they're saying, well, it's great. Like restaurants are reopening and cafes are reopening, and people are coming back, and they're really like probably people that went to Europe. It's not that like that fast to come back to Kiev, but people who stayed in Ukraine, but like in different regions, they came back really quick. And I think in next month I will return to Kiev.
We hope, but
yeah, I hope.
We hope, because it will be a very, very difficult business, but we will see what happens.
Guys,
okay.
do you, excuse me, you were, I wanted to ask the others if they also have some questions towards about the topic.
I have a question. You were mentioning about the difference between generation, and so what about the difference between the Eastern Ukraine and Western Ukraine regarding the opinion to the European Union?
Yes, so it's also a big difference between the East and the West, because even with the war happening in the East, we can see a lot of people actually supporting Russia and saying we want to be a part of Russia. So there are a lot of support for Russia in the East, and it's really little in the West. And I think it's because the western part of Ukraine is closer to Europe, and a lot of people are working in Europe. They are traveling a lot, often in Europe, and so it's basically like half of Ukraine is more pro-European, and another one is more pro-Russian, maybe. But I think it changed also. Yeah, it changed also in 2014 a lot. And it also is changing a lot right now, because people, even from the eastern regions, they are fleeing towards Ukraine and towards Europe, I think, more than towards Russia. So yeah, it's just like, I think you can see this difference also kind of like in France, when you have this, like Strasbourg, for example, it's really closer to Germany. While I was in Lille, and it's closer to Belgium, for example, and a lot of Belgians are living in Lille, or French from Lille are living in Belgium. So it's really kind of like, who is your neighborhood?
Yeah.
You are heading towards your neighborhood a lot.
I was in Montpellier, so I can say that indeed it's very different from Strasbourg.
Yeah, and from Lille.
Yeah, especially.
I could see this when I was in discussing with some Belarusians, because actually I was very surprised, because the Belarusians, they have a lot of contacts with the Baltic states, because they work there, they travel a lot, and actually I think they have changed a lot. And I think they have, yes, I think they are very prone to the European Union as well. Okay.
Yes, they're traveling a lot to the European Union as well. And I saw a lot of Belarusians in Poland. So yeah, they're studying there, they're working there, and in the Baltic states also.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we were seeing in Czech Republic is very interesting also, because they have always, they are still a lot of Ukrainians living here and working here. But I guess the Czechs didn't pay attention to the Ukrainians. I mean, they were happy because Ukrainians are working very well. They're working hard. And then I realized, I was talking with some Czech people, when the war started, they suddenly realized that they had Ukrainians and they didn't know anything about Ukrainians. This is why we started this idea with Mirka. And actually, I was speaking with some friends who were listening, because now we have in Czech Republic, we have news in Ukrainian on the radio at many times. And then suddenly the Czechs realize they understand Ukrainian, because Ukrainian is not so far from Czech. So it was also a discovery that they made. Yes, Cecile, what do you think about Ukrainians in Czech Republic? Okay. Anything else? Mirka, what do we do now?
It's very similar in Slovakia.
Oh, yeah.
Very similar, like we have quite many Ukrainians working here and saving our labor market in you know, like hard work, but also like we need medical assistants, and we need dentists, for example. So recently more and more Ukrainians, even well skilled, have been moving to us, and we didn't pay attention so much to you know, to this work power, but nowadays we realize that the language is similar. Many people in my bubble and in Slovakia are now having families in their families, you know, like the refugees. And then there are kids at schools and wherever. So this culture and nation is getting more and more obvious and visible.
So, and in a country which is much further, like France, I was recently reading an article, because they put some Ukrainian children in the schools, and those schools are in French. And now they have translators to help the children. And actually they realized that the Ukrainian children were much better at mathematics than the French. And so they are really realizing there is a big difference at that level. And I'm not surprised, because because I had Ukrainian students in the past, and I remember one of my Ukrainian students started working at the marketing of Renault, because when you have to make this internship, I had found an internship at Renault, and I talked with the people I knew at Renault, and they said to me, "Oh, she's doing a perfect job because she's working on data." And because she was doing things very complicated on the data analysis for competition about the different other models and other brands. And she said, and the people I knew at Renault said, we couldn't find such people in France. He said, because really she was perfect. And she worked, I think, she's no more at Renault, but she worked 5 years at Renault in the marketing department on very specific things on data.